We made this.
Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Pick a Disc. I am your host Matt Latham and this is the podcast where someone picks a disc to talk about for whatever reason they want to. And today I'm welcoming on Brad from the Album Concept Hour podcast to talk about Run the Jewels 2 by Run the Jewels. I didn't think, I in my head I had something a lot more witty and a better way of saying that, but you know what, I'm so many things in now and I don't want to redo it. I did the last episode, episode 111 in one take, and I'm wanting to do that again, and I'm hoping that you as listeners can encourage me to carry on with this thing, and I'm rambling, oh dear. Anyway, so the episode we talk about all the things that we talk about usually about albums, talk about songs, the album, talk about Killer Mike, and talk about LP. Brad mentions meeting Killer Mike and we talk about that, and etc, etc, etc. But before I hit play on that interview, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe on whatever you're doing to listen to this, be it your podcast apps, be it Apple Podcasts, be it whatever. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter under Pick a Disc. And don't forget, we've also got a Discord server called the Pick a Discord, and the link will be in the show notes. So feel free to click on that and say hello. So with that, I think that's everything ticked off. This is perhaps another one-take wonder. If I go and, you know what, I'm going to leave this in. I quite like the rambling, free-flowing conversation that I'm having, and you gradually getting annoyed that I haven't started the interview yet. So before you start revolting and like causing a revolution to usurp me as host of the podcast, let's speak to Brad. Welcome to Matt Forgets. This is an audio podcast where I'm being nosy at people's backgrounds. So you've got a whiteboard behind you, which I'm assuming is it potential concept album hour spoilers?
No, these are old ones. Yeah, I just haven't erased it in a while. But yeah. You can get a few of our really great episodes when we were doing our October thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I can only see a bit of it, so I can only see the third week in 1 month, and I can just about see King Giz's new album, which could be which could be any any of the last five,
any number of albums. Yeah,
depending on how out of date that whiteboard is, but
yeah, it's pretty out of date. But I keep it up because that was a good month, so I like to remind myself of it.
Yep. So that's So and the background of who I'm talking to is Brad from the Album Concert Hour podcast.
Hey,
Brad,
what's going
welcome
on?
to Pick a Disc.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be on here.
No problem. I'm gonna say returning the favour. You somehow managed to convince me to go on to talk for the Eminem show for 2 hours on your own podcast.
Yeah. I learned a lot about Eminem that I didn't know. So that was a really fun experience. So yeah. Here to return the favor.
Yeah, 20 years of... for anyone who's not listened to it, it was just me explaining my theory that the Eminem show is actually a nice end of trilogy of an identity crisis for Eminem and stuff. And it's 20 years of no one listening to me finally being unleashed.
Finally, they're hearing my story.
Yeah. But... but we're not here to talk about Eminem. We're not here to talk about your podcast yet.
Yeah.
You're actually here. We're here to talk about you and an album that you've picked to talk about today. So, Brad, why don't you tell the lovely listeners the disc that you've picked for us to talk about today?
Well, this might end up being somewhat similar to that episode, just on my end. I've picked Run the Jewels 2, RTJ 2, which came out a year after their first album and completely changed how I looked at rap and hip hop and changed how I looked at the world. So it's one of the most important albums, I think, of my music listening journey, especially as an adult. It's one of the most significant ones in recent years. So,
ooh, okay, yeah. So, yeah, I'm rubbing my hands together with glee, saying,
"Oh
nice.
yeah, oh yeah,
things to pick out." Get my interview thing on.
Yeah, I've been waiting to talk about this one. I maybe have too many notes, but we'll see.
Oh, Yeah, no, you're in the right place to talk about it. So, I'm assuming you kind of hinted it, but why exactly have you picked this then? Because you alluded to it being quite
So
important.
I was a kind of casual hip hop fan at this point. This was maybe, my mid 20s when this album came out, maybe early 20s. It's hard to tell with the 20s. Yeah, my brother was really, the hip hop head of the family. Like he was the one that was always introducing me to new hip hop, and I was trying to kind of get into hip hop through him. But it was just a few tracks here and there, singles and things like that. I didn't really appreciate a full album of hip hop regularly. You know what I mean? Except for maybe 36 Chambers. That was one that like start to finish, I was like, yeah, this is fucking great. But yeah, as when I heard Run the Jewels, it was just start to finish such a marathon, like nonstop ride. Like it gave me just an adrenaline rush. It gave me, it just like it came out of nowhere for me. Like I didn't know that hip hop could be like this. I didn't know that it could have such I don't know, that LP production, I guess, is probably what part of what caught me too, because it was so unique to hip hop. And then on top of that, there was all of the themes that they're talking about as far as like their political themes, revolutionary politics, you know, challenging the status quo, talking about like racial injustice in a really frank way. A lot of these things, like this was my first time really starting to grapple with that kind of stuff. Because that's kind of where I was in life as well. I was, especially, I'm from the United States and I've lived through the Trump era. It is a very, very necessary and needed voice, I think. Killer Mike in particular, with the kind of just radical philosophies he brings to the table. So there's just a whole lot of things just wrapped up in a nice package for me in one album. So to be brief.
So it's pretty much the impact that it had and what it opened you up to is one of the key
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So how did you first discover Run the
I mean, my
Jewels?
brother just heard about he was, following it. He got the I think it dropped somewhere before the official release. Like there was like an earlier version of Love Again on that one. I don't know. We were probably just hanging out and smoking sometime, and he just played it, and I was just like, "What? What? The lyrical stuff is so like hilarious, like, and so it was just coming at you so fast." And yeah, I just fell in love with just immediately when he played it, and played it over and over and over again, and it. From then, I was able to listen to other hip hop albums and really appreciate the fullness of them. So. Yeah, yeah. That's I mean, it's not a very interesting origin story necessarily, but it was something that was a kind of watershed moment for me.
And was it this album or the first one?
This one in particular, like I was, I don't think I was aware of the first album. I don't think I was aware of what they were doing. I don't think I was aware of Killer Mike or LP. Honestly, that's how out of touch I was with the hip hop world. So yeah, for me, this was very fresh. It was, to me, it was just two random, older rappers coming together and making something incredible. So the story was cool too. Yeah, just everything about it just really, really intrigued me.
Okay. And so, as you said, is it just like no history with hip hop whatsoever apart from like the one Wu-Tang album? So you had
Yeah.
so it was like blank.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I had a pretty fresh palette for hip hop yet. I mean, it wasn't quite established what my favorite forms of hip hop were yet.
so what kind of music were you listening to at the time then?
So I started out as like an emo kid, I think, for the most part. And I was in a pop punk band for a while. And then I would say post hardcore was my favorite thing, and probably still is one of my favorite things. In my 20s, early 20s, I discovered punk. like real punk. And because I was from a city that, punk was not, there was no punk rockers around my town. You know what I mean? Like, it was just not, I didn't think that they existed anymore. But then I moved to a bigger town, and punk rock became a big thing for me for a while. Like, I still love going to like punk rock shows. I don't listen to a whole lot of punk rock, but I love a live show when it comes to that. And then, yeah, I was just kind of taking kind of suggestions from my friends as I was growing, and kind of trying to expand my musical horizons. But yeah, hip hop was always one that eluded me, as far as like my grabbing my full attention. I think probably because of some, biases I had growing up, uh, that I just needed to work out. You know what I mean? And finally, I was able to, at a place mentally where I was able to kind of like be like, okay, yeah, this is good stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so it was this album. So this is the first album. Then, this and this kind of just like cascaded. What
yeah,
kind of things
yeah.
did you listen? Was it just?
Well, after this, I would say it would be like, Deltron 3030. Well, Gorillas, of course. Well, that was another hip hop group that I was into before this, but I don't like always throw them in with the rest of hip hop because they're, it's a little, it's just, all star hip hop thing. It's just different.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there was that. Let's see. Danny Brown I eventually found because of RTJ. Man, I'm drawing a blank on names, but yeah, my brother would be a better repertoire of what I was listening to back then, because he was, every time I jump in my brother's car, he'd be playing some new interesting thing. So yeah, and this was my little brother, so it's a little different. Like, usually it's like the older brother that's passing down, their music, but for me and him, it was always kind of an exchange of things. Like, I would show him stuff, he'd show me stuff, and we constantly have always been sharing music with each other. And yeah, he kind of just, I think he kind of wore me down with hip hop, kind of, because like I would just hear it when I was with him all the time. So
Mm.
yeah, definitely connected to yeah, my brother in that way.
Okay. Slight deviation. Have you ever heard of Dan
Yeah.
Lesac versus Scroobius Pip?
Of what?
Dan Lesac and Scroobius Pip.
I don't think
They're
so.
they're Dan Lesac a DJ and Scroobius Pip's a kind. Well, it's a podcast house now, but he was also like an
Yeah.
MC as well, and like a slam poet. And yeah, the great stuff.
Yeah.
I think their first album is going to be a Matt Pick one day.
Yeah,
They had a second
yeah.
album. On their second album, The Logic of Chance, they had a song called Snob, and
Yeah.
basically the idea being that basically he has like the two verses. Like, the first verse is about this kind of scruffy kid from like a low income housing estate suddenly
Yeah.
finding classical music.
Yeah.
And then connecting with it, and then trying to go and
Yeah.
watch something live, and because of the way he dresses, right, they don't let him into this hall because he doesn't
Yeah.
look like someone who does that. The second
Yeah,
verse,
yeah.
the second verse is about a girl called Frankie, who her music taste was just the Enemy playlist and anything recommended by the rich and famous. And the story of the verse goes: she went to download Midnight Vultures and accidentally downloaded Midnight Marauders, and then suddenly a world of hip hop came in. And the rest of this verse is about someone who, like, completely blank and had no idea what like hip hop, or was like culturally blind, suddenly being announced and stuff. And the story, the verse goes on where she goes to a shop to try and like to get recommendations, and the shopkeepers just snarks to her and stuff. But your story of like saying like of Run the Jewels suddenly opening this like new it just reminds me of that song.
Well, like similar and almost similarly, but in a reversal kind of way. Like, part of the reason I think that I didn't get into hip hop is I was actually surrounded by it when I was growing up. I'm from Beloit, Wisconsin, which is and the high school I grew up in, like, there was just as many like white people as black and Latino people. You know what I mean? I think part of part of it for me was I was an anxious kid or whatever, and I didn't understand the culture. And so, yeah, I always just felt like an outsider when whether it was like the dances and the nights like that, because like I didn't understand hip hop, and that's all that was being played at any given function. You know what I mean? So I was really inundated with it when I was young. And I will say I also don't think that the 2000s was the best time for hip hop, So I mean, I don't think it's necessarily it was also like, I wasn't seeing the best hip hop could provide on the screen. But yeah, I think that's part of it too, is like the anxiety of my young life was wrapped up in it for a while. And then, yeah, I was the outsider in that situation, and now, it's.
I think I might have already said something like this along when I was on album concepts hour, but I can't remember when exactly I kind of got into rap. But it was like my first one of my I really liked, I think, the Fugees. Killing Me Softly, and then got the album, and then that was like the first album that it was the first album that had swearing on it. So I remember little 11-year-old me putting in the score by the Fugees, and then it's Wyclef Jean going, the Fugees, the score. Yo, what's fucking the other day with a shotgun? And then suddenly I'm like, within seconds, and I'm jumping over the thing, turning it down, going, oh my god, the swearing on this.
I can't let my mom hear this. Oh my god.
Yeah. She bought me and stuff, but then I think then that kind of escalated, and I remember. But then I think Christmases, my Christmas list would add random kind of like rap albums and stuff. And
nice.
To this day,
so your parents were cool.
Yeah, to this day, I don't know if I can't remember if I said this on this podcast. I must have. To this day, I have the memory of my mom asking. I wasn't there, obviously, but I've just got this vivid memory of my mum asking someone in HMV, do you have Crazy Bones Thug Mentality 1999 for my son? What's for Christmas? Do you have
that's awesome.
Bone and BONE Enterprise?
That is awesome that your mom was cool enough to do that, My parents are cool now, but like I was in a family where like we weren't allowed to listen to secular music when I was young. So like, hip hop was out of the question as far as the home goes. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm sure that didn't help, with my access to it.
Yeah, I think my parents had no idea what I was listening to anyway, but
I don't know. With the titles that your mom was reading off, she might have been starting to get an understanding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But maybe she was just playing it cool. I don't know. I don't know your mom, so.
But then I think like so then the internet came in, and I was downloading all sorts of stuff. Like it took half an hour to download a low quality MP3. But then I think it was the Killers. Around 2002, 2003. I heard somebody told me, and then even though I kind of liked a bit of pop punk, like Blink-182 and something like one and stuff, I was kind of just like listening to a lot of rap and stuff. And then suddenly the Killers came in, and then suddenly I was an indie kid, and then that got me off. That got me off rap music, and since then, then I've kind of drifted away, and aside from perhaps the odd Eminem album or anything, then yeah, I go into this a bit more detail on your own podcast, so listen to that.
I'm actually similar, though. I don't listen to a ton of rap day to day right now, but there's like a bunch of albums that like I will come back to when I need them. I've been getting into a lot of indie stuff right now too. So but then again, hip hop for like the last 15 or so years, I'm pretty much culturally blind, which lines to my the bit where we talk about my disclosure, which which in terms of Run the Jewels, I know the name. I know friends of mine who've went to see them when they play Birmingham in the UK years ago, and I know people who just really like this album, or whenever Run the Jewels come up, or when I've told previous guests off mic, I'm going to be doing Run the Jewels and stuff, and it's like, I love Run the Jewels 2 is great, or I love Run the Jewels 3, and they're going, I got no idea what's going on, so I'm coming in really quite blind. Okay, interesting.
To the point that I wasn't aware Killer Mike was part of Run the Jewels. That's how blind I was.
Okay.
I only really know Killer Mike because of his appearance on The Whole World, the Outcast single, which was off a
Oh,
compilation
yeah,
album.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, do you know the kind of origin of Run the Jewels? Did you run
I
into that when
don't
you were
know.
doing it?
So no,
So
so you're
it's another thing.
you're going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting, I think.
Yeah. So this is part of what's really cool about Run the Jewels. Um, so Adult Swim, right?
Yes.
The Cartoon Network thing.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't know if it's much over here, or if it was, I never kind of got into it. But I know
yeah,
the
it might have not been as big of yeah. It's very very American centric thing. But it was so they have a guy that does music stuff. They did that album with MF Doom and the Adult Swim characters. And so Adult Swim has had had a history with music, at least a few albums, and then someone at Adult Swim. I don't know exactly how this happened, but they introduced Killer Mike to LP. Like they put them together essentially, like put them in the same room. They got along well. They put out an album together, Killer Mike's album that was produced by LP, and they just created this beautiful friendship. Like both 40 some years old, in a later part of their life, just randomly create this like big thing that's bigger than anything either of them have done on their own. And Adult Swim is who we have to thank for it. Like it's what the channel that like raised me as far as my like comedic senses and like I was watching Adult Swim all the way from like 9 years old to whenever. And so, like, the fact that that was also what created my favorite rap group was like mind blowing to me.
so a children's network.
Yeah. A children's
the-
network, the adult
it's-
wing of the children.
yeah.
Well, it's basically an adult network now. They've like mostly separated Adult Swim and Cartoon Network, but that so the story is very interesting to me as well, because then I got to go back and discover Killer Mike's discography and LP's background, and so there was just a lot to go through to fully understand these guys. And the Outcast, the Killer Mike, that's another thing. He's got a background with Outcast. Big Boy is in the first album, supporting them in their first single. So like, they both have roots in, very significant hip hop sectors too. So
Yeah, for the uninitiated, kind of like me, so I'm just going from
yeah,
Wikipedia. So Run the Jewels, also known as RTJ, are an
Yep.
American hip hop super duo composed of Brooklyn-based rapper LP and Atlanta-based rapper Killer Mike. They released critically acclaimed self-titled debut album as a free download in 2013 and released the follow-up albums Run the Jewels 2, which we're talking about today, Run the Jewels 3, and then Run the Jewels 4, The Quest for Peace in 2020.
Yep. Quest for Peace, pretty ironic title considering the time it came out.
Well, I was going to say RTJ Citizens on Patrol, but I can't remember if that's the fourth Police Academy movie or not.
Yeah. No. The Quest for Peace is fun because 4 came out right before the Black Lives Matter and George Floyd stuff. So yeah, they that was one where, I mean, we're not talking about 4, but that was another one that's really got a great story, and they were really on top of the political stuff. But we're not talking about 4. 4 is great though.
Yeah, we are talking about number 2. Killer Mike, I was kind of aware of. Yeah, so I'm kind of aware of. LP, I mean, I think...
Yeah, he's way underground.
Yeah. On a pub quiz, if you'd asked me, name both members of Run the Jewels, I probably would have known Killer Mike, well, now, but LP is complete mystery to me.
Yeah.
All I know is that... So he's from Brooklyn, so he's Brooklyn based.
Yeah.
So he's like East Coaster. So what's his background? Is he part of
So
a group
he's
or,
like he comes from just really grimy underground hip hop, and like so like for the first like while, like most of the times when he appears on something or you see him on something, he's just this grimy Brooklyn guy, but what he's known for mostly though is production. Like he's got like he had like a couple albums of his own, but mostly he's known for like Aesop Rock is a band is a a guy that he produced one of his early albums and helped kind of establish his sound. And yeah, he's just been in the background of various underground people. He has a label that is called Def Jux, which was his kind of main thing for a long time, until him and Killer Mike eventually got together. So yeah, he's just been kind of he's had his ups and downs and industry experiences, and he's had beefs with former partners and stuff. So he's kind of gone through all of the the hip hop ringers. You know what I mean? And yeah, Killer Mike from Atlanta. Atlanta's a lot more. His background's a little more known, being with Outkast and stuff. So, but yeah, LP is someone that like almost never should have broken into the mainstream. Like his background would suggest that like he would remain underground. But yeah, Run the Jewels clicked with people. Now he's a top contender.
Run the Jewels 2 was released on the 24th of October 2014. It also had a light-hearted remix album called Meow the Jewels, which have you listened?
Yeah, I've heard it.
Yeah, which apparently is just all cat sounds.
All cat sounds. He does that a couple times. I think he did that to the first one as well. First album.
Yeah, and
I don't think he did it with the third and fourth. I think it's just the first two he did Meow the Jewels. But yeah, loves cats. LP is a big cat lover, apparently.
But so yeah, so I think off the success of the first album, they ended up doing the second.
So what happened apparently is so the first album was kind of originally going to be a one-off. Just kind of an idea, it's just a fun, like, let's throw it out there. We've been having fun touring and stuff. But while they were doing their tour, they're doing their tour on Run the Jewels, they were doing their sets, their longer sets individually, and then ending the night with like a shorter Run the Jewels set. And they were noticing that people were getting more hyped about the Run the Jewels set than anything else. You know what I mean? So at some point in the tour, LP was just like, "Hey, you want to do another one?" And yeah, they continued to keep making them, and they're still doing it. So yeah, it was never meant to be a long-term project, but they just have had so much fun making music together and touring together that they don't see any reason to stop doing it. Which is a really powerful story for a hip hop duo. You know what I mean? Like that they stay so committed to one another on that front.
Yeah, so the album itself then, I wasn't sure what to expect really. So I think considering
Opens pretty strong.
Yeah, I had a feeling it was probably going to be a lot more a mix of old school but more aggressive, kind of aggressive mix of old and new school, and it kind of is. It's like it doesn't seem to have a singular identity, so you can't really class it as like either East Coast or West Coast or South or Midwest or anything like that. And I think that's probably because of the different backgrounds of LP and Killer Mike, and it kind of it's not it's definitely not kind of it's not like a Dr. Dre G Funk early 90s album at all. It's got like a kind of storytelling intent and kind of wants to tell it to you in a certain way, but it gives it. I found it has its kind of unique identity, so because you can't really categorize it as a certain subgenre or area of rap, which sometimes like you can kind of do with most albums, I think.
Well, they were really influenced by Run DMC for their approach. I don't know as much about Run DMC and what they sound like, but I don't think they sound like Run DMC. It's more like just how they approached it. But yeah, LP's production is so his own, uh like one of the things that like Killer Mike says in one of these tracks is you know fuck what you're rapping, who produced you, talking about like, he doesn't just take beats from like random people. He has the best beats constructed by like one of the best at doing it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Killer Mike is very proud of LP's production. And a good thing to probably check out if you're a fan of this is to check out Rap Music, which was the first time that they collaborated. It's a really really good, I mean, almost honorary Run the Jewels album, but there's just not as much rap from LP. But yeah, you hear it in that one, like the production style that they would kind of move forward with.
Yeah, I think the closest probably analog I can think of. Have you ever heard of Idea and Abilities? They were
Of
on
what?
Idea and Abilities. They were on Rhyme Sayers. I
Okay.
think that was, I think, a kind of, that was like
Oh,
another.
Idea. Is that
Yeah,
what you're talking? Yeah.
yeah. He had well, he's only been dead for at least 10 years now, but
Mm-hmm.
he was in
Yeah.
a duo
R.I.P.
with a producer called Abilities, and
Yeah.
that had kind of like very almost indie electronic synthy beats
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
A lot of distortion, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
energy and stuff, and
Yeah.
that reminded me a lot of kind of this as well. That kind of almost like,
Definitely.
yeah, the ability
Well,
style stuff. And
I actually thought LP was from the Twin Cities for a little while, because the rap from the Twin Cities is the closest thing, I think, because that's where the Rhyme Sayers are from, and that's like, I think, yeah, where a lot of the best like underground hip hop was coming from, especially in the 2010s. When I was getting into rap, so. Yeah, that's part of why I liked it too. Is like it was like it's kind of like that indie hip hop stuff, but like so much more polished and like you know potential for a mainstream audience. You know what I mean? Because
yeah,
Aesop Rock is great and beloved in the hip hop community, but like I don't think Aesop Rock has ever like broken through to mainstream necessarily. You know what I mean? Like
I couldn't. I
you're not going to see him at the Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
yeah, I couldn't name an Ace Rock song.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Yeah, that's
and
that's that's probably one of the bigger like new indie rap guys. Like his stuff is absolutely worth looking into, especially if you're an Eminem fan. Like you like the lyrics, like quality. He's I think at the last count, he's got the biggest vocabulary in hip hop. So he's
Ace
one of those
Rock.
guys.
Was he
Aesop
the one?
Rock.
Was he the one who did I'd Love College?
So okay, I'm not sure because there's ASAP Rocky as well.
Okay.
ASAP Rocky is, I think he's with. Is he the one that Rihanna's with right now?
No, people are going to kill me. I'm thinking of Asher Roth.
Asher Roth. It
Yeah.
sounds similar.
Yeah, ASAP Rock, Asher Roth. Please don't kill me.
Yeah. I swear I heard that before. But yeah, ASAP Rock again. If you're, comes from the LP's legacy though, and yeah,
Yeah, I think. Yeah, ASAP Rock. Yeah. Apart from thinking he did the Asher Roth song, which I don't. Yeah, again, kind of we're talking about stuff that's like modern or like the last decade of hip hop is like really kind of blank
yeah.
to me. And
For me,
stuff.
it's like the last like 3 or 4 years of hip hop that like I'm just like. I don't have much to say about it necessarily. Yeah, I can tell that I'm getting, a little older and, a little more out of touch with the new stuff coming out.
The young people and their rap music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm past 30 now, I'm starting
Mm.
to, feel that nostalgia
Yeah.
for things that I loved.
Yeah, the only kind of major hip hop opinion that I know I have is that I don't understand why Drake is popular.
Yeah, that one's always like I do understand he's got like I don't know. He's got an appeal to both men and women, I guess.
Mm,
As far as like hip hop goes, he provides something for everyone. So but yeah, again, I would agree with you. I don't think he deserves to be on like
I think, but then again, I
the
think
Mount Rushmore of hip hop or anything.
but then again, though, I think my kind of what I quite like in rap music is either kind of the Midwest Bone Thugs and Harmony, like
Yeah.
stupidly fast Twister kind of.
Yeah.
Like you have to listen at 0.5 stuff like I think to the point where I think I did try and listen to Tech Nine, but he's got so many albums, he's just daunting. But
he's
that
he
kind
works.
of so it's either that kind of really fast like chopper style stuff, or overly complex rhyming stuff. I'm a massive fan. Like I'm really big fan. I've not listened to some of his later stuff recently, but I'm a big fan of Watsky.
Yeah.
But he's also quite fast, but he's also very technical. And I think, as I said, I was a big Eminem fan, so the kind of technical, multi-syllabic rhyming stuff. That's my kind of
like
stuff.
the wordsmithing is one of the forefronts of it.
Yeah.
That's not always like an important element of hip hop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I think it's the kind of the benefits or the reasons for not being that, or the more stream of consciousness stuff, is something that I'm kind of blind to. So like, and I think there's a nice mix of both in this, which is kind of nice. So you've got your more technical kind of multisyllabic rhyming, technical stuff, but then you've got if not stream of consciousness on perhaps the only other real R&B. I think the only other real hip hop album that we've covered apart from British band The Streets Twice is A Tribe Called Quest, and that was less about the rhyme but more about the stream of consciousness commentary.
Yeah. That was when like jazz was one of the bigger influences with those guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they like to, creep around, find what I don't know how to describe it. You know what I mean? There's just the jazz element to it.
Yeah, but I think those kind of differences in the lyrical abilities, not abilities, the styles of lyricism in hip hop, it's a mixture of both in this. So it's not
like there's no mandate that you have to be like Eminem. You know what I mean? Like you can make a fine rap song without spitting the most fire bars you've ever heard.
I'm addicted to YouTube videos which will go through rap verses and color code certain rhyme schemes. I don't know if you've seen these where.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so like
I gotta see that. That sounds awesome.
But yeah, basically, if you look at Aquemini, Andre 3000's verse of Aquemini in Aquemini, right? It's just the same color because it's about the word. He's got the same rhyme scheme for about a minute, but it'll be the color. Whereas you have like Eminem, Stay Wide Awake. That second verse, there's a bit where he goes into kind of horrorcore, kind of mass murdering stuff. But he's got like about six different verb sounds or vocal sounds, and he manages to get for 12 maybe 14 lines, every line on the same hitbox stress on the beat. He's the same color. So So you've got people who are like that, but then you got people like that. You got the people who kind of do the kind of one or two on the hitbox or multiple on the hitbox, or you got Drake who forgets he needs to rhyme until the last syllable.
Yeah. That's more popular these days. Is I don't know if it's just subverting expectations or what, but that's definitely a little more common these days.
Yeah, but I think but there's a nice kind of mix of like more traditional kind of like rhyming on this one, which I quite appreciate. So.
Yeah. I mean, they're both, being, first of all, the age they are, they are from that period. But they have an appreciation for it. And Killer Mike, at least, has always been, making, verses about very important things. He's always been an activist in his community, and he's always been very, very political and all of that. But it's never been this marketable to the masses. So it really, I think they both have both just have such a good message inside of them to get out, from their years of experience.
Yeah. So if we move on to some of the songs,
Yeah.
which song do you want to start us off with?
Oh man. Okay. This is the big decision here. Okay. So first of all, just I want to say the intro of the album, just the first like 30 seconds where Killer Mike is just yelling into the mic. Like he's like, someone put a mirror on the screen. Let's go, LP. Like he's just so I just want to mention that part because that energy, like that was also something that kind of shocked me into the album. I was like, what a way to open an album. Like
Yeah, and it's also not a separate skit.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
it is the opening of that track.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think as I've gotten older, I've developed not hate. Well, I've not really listened to much rap now, but if I've ever listened to stuff, I'm like, do skits work? No, I don't know.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I was always like that was what another thing that held me back from getting into rap albums. Like, what are all these skits doing here? I was always very confused as to why they were occurring, But yeah, this one's blended into the songs. So it's a different kind of thing. But you can just hear how much Killer Mike is enjoying himself and enjoying the studio time. Like they didn't have to throw that in. That was just a riff, That was clearly just a riff in the studio of him just yelling about how excited he was. You know what I mean? That was him hyping himself up. But yeah, like LP has got that kind of sense of humor to like put stuff like that in the right parts. You know what I mean? I think that LP's a very comedic producer and editor. Like he's got a lot of little jokes just in the sounds that he throws in. You know what I mean? That you can kind of appreciate over multiple listening. But yeah, just the opening of the album is just killer. And I want to say also before getting into some tracks, the album is under 40 minutes, which is I think a big part of why this is a great album for me. It's one of those all killer, no filler albums. There are some slower parts and some sweeter parts, but like they don't linger on them for like minutes at a time. They get it, they get there, they get out. So that's the whole construction of the full album is part of also why I think it's one of the best rap albums I think in general that I've listened to. It's just so there's not a wasted moment.
Yeah, there's 11 tracks as well, 39 minutes.
Yeah.
And even with my kind of like reputation of long song hating and like if it's a good time for 40 minutes is a good time for an album. Like
that's
the sweet spot.
That is
the 45 minute.
Yeah, I think what that always tells me when I'm just looking at it before even listening is like this group is confident about this material that they're putting out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because a lot of people think they need to pad it out or fill up the time more and think they're not putting out enough content or something with a shorter album. But like I always find like doing the album concept hour like that, the short sweet ones are usually my favorites,
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And again, to briefly bring up Thug Mentality 1999, because there is a reason I'm bringing it up, but it'll be more apparent a bit later on with a certain song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The first CD of that is about 70 odd minutes, and it's a double album.
Yeah.
And which
did you say 70?
Yeah, there's about 2 CDs with 60 plus.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
There's a lot of kind of like cutting of like if I ever re-listen to it, I'm kind of like taking out MP3s on the track listing now. The opening.
No need to go through all of it. You've heard it.
Yeah, I think the opening is like direct in your face, pretty much like the music, Killer Mike and LP, like going straight to it.
Yeah. And then I think that I'm just gonna go. We're gonna go in order of the track list for what I like. I'll skip a few probably, but I think that Close Your Eyes and Count to Fuck is a featuring Zach De La Rocha is one of the most important songs that they've made. And music videos. Did you see the music video for this by chance?
Sorry,
Did you see the music video for any of these?
I haven't. No, I didn't get a
Okay.
chance to. I was listening to the.
So this song, first of all, is about the prison industrial complex and how we need to fight back, and how, like, he's like literally calling for like prison riots in this song. Like, this is a song that he refers back to in future songs, saying like this is the stuff that's probably going to get me killed, because he is, one of the lines is, you know when are you, he's talking about the prisoners, he's like, when are you going to get together and kill the police, motherfuckers, and he's like talking about, how there's all this infighting that we have, when meanwhile, like, there is this threat of incarceration and all of that. And the music video is a black man and a police officer just fighting for the entirety of the music video, just like, not like, like they don't have weapons or anything, they're just kind of wrestling each other and trying to subdue each other, essentially. And it's just a long drawn out, like, tit for tat fight thing, and they end up, like, at the end of the music video, they're both just sitting on the same bed, exhausted, you know what I mean? And it came out during the kind of first wave of like the Black Lives Matter movement. So it was just like, especially with all this stuff I was kind of processing at the time in my life, as far as trying to understand, incarceration and the prison industrial complex and the injustices of where I live. It was just something that was very powerful imagery, and just a whole new perspective on, I've always I've always, even without being a hip hop fan, I've had a natural aversion to the police, because for most of my life I've kind of looked like Shaggy. And so police officers have always assumed that I am a stoner or up to no good. So I've been kind of, given tickets willy nilly, and, kind of, not brutalized by the cops by any means, but I've never been given like a, like, nice warning by the cops. You know what I mean? Like, it's usually like, we're going to throw the book at you because you look like a stoner, even though I wasn't at the times when I'm talking about, I was not indulging in that at all. Yeah, I already had kind of a healthy aversion to, the police system here. Sorry, by the way, we're gonna probably get into some American politics here. But Yeah, this was Killer Mike really is a person that has helped me kind of interpret, what I was raised with, and you know, why exactly the police are, what exactly is wrong with the police. Not that just that, like, I dislike the police, but like, why, what is wrong, what is the, systemic reason for things. Like, it opened up like a doorway to a lot of that stuff for me. So um yeah, that's in this song and other songs in the album, but this is the song that really gets into that really in a heavy way. So yeah, anyone that went through Black Lives Matter stuff, if you were involved in activism and protest stuff, it's like yeah, it brings some feelings watching that music video.
Yeah, so I say the I think the again I don't delve too much, because I don't really I don't feel like I'm in a position to to say, because yeah, I'm in quite a privileged position of kind of like of where I am, so I can't really talk for the experience of stuff. But one thing I've always felt, or a criticism that I've seen people saying, like, oh, why are people listening to this genre or listening to this music? You can't relate to it. Which, okay, it's fair criticism. You can't relate to stuff, but like when NWA first come out with Straight Outta Compton, which
Yeah.
came massive and got massive and hit on a
Yeah.
broad
Yeah.
spectrum. I think what it was doing, rather than people, well, for me personally, it's not a case of relating to the content. It's more of having your eyes open to the experiences
Yeah.
of people
Yeah.
that you would not have had issues with. And I think that's what, and I think that's, I think, part of the impact, and perhaps the way to capitalize on a mainstream success is to use that platform
Yeah. Yeah.
to not only have things that perhaps people can relate to, but also shine a light on people who, again, like myself, for example, who aren't black men,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Just to
Yeah. What
see,
you
just
can't.
this is what the experience is like, and this is what we're going through. This is what we should be doing. This is what we're going through, and you need to see that, and you
Yeah.
need to
Yeah.
appreciate how it's different for yourselves as opposed to us and stuff. And that I've always seen as that's like part of the intent, I think, with music. So it's not just for, like, music's for everyone, or anyone can enjoy that music, but then you have that reaction to it as like a
Yeah.
separate reaction, saying, "Oh, okay, this is what's happening, and we need to be
Yeah.
aware
This is
of
what's
it."
happening in the
Yeah.
world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like Killer Mike, especially, like I've said, like he's an activist, and like he came to Madison, Wisconsin, was where I'm from, and he did a talk at our college about police brutality and racial injustice and stuff. So he's like someone that not only is he saying this in hip hop, he's also like going around and like speaking to younger people and sharing his experiences in an like academic sense as well. So he's like he's I guess what I'm saying is, for him, the lyrics are not only incidental, but like explicitly, like he is a revolutionary, and he's trying to get that message out there, and in a really digestible way. Yeah, yeah. And another thing is Killer Mike's father was a cop.
Yeah, I read about this.
Yeah, so that kind of adds another kind of layer to the conversation that isn't always there, because he, for him, it isn't as simple as probably defund the police, as much as like we need to reimagine and restructure police forces, because like one of the rants he goes on in some song is like, I know a crooked cop when I see one. My dad was a cop. You know what I mean? So I don't think, he probably doesn't think that all cops are bad necessarily, because his father was a cop. You know what I mean? So like that just fundamentally changes like how you talk about it in the conversation in a way that is I don't know, very very fresh. And he doesn't like by any means glorify cops, like but in the music video, the cop isn't necessarily just framed in a villain role, as much as like by the end of it, like he's also experiencing the I guess that what Killer Mike brings to it is like the prison industrial complex and bad policing and stuff not only negatively impacts the people that are directly impacted, but it mentally ruins those cops, as people, so it just shows, the duality of nature. Like Killer Mike gets into some deep shit sometimes. Like he is just always trying to, educate you as you're listening, and let's see if I can find another song to kind of demonstrate some of that. Oh yeah, Lie, Cheat, Steal. This is one of my favorites in general. Just, I mean, first of all, it's a banger. It's a really really good track. um it starts off like kind of I don't know, weird mystical kind of sounding, and then like morphs into like the full on rap song. The production's great. And what I like about it is first of all, a lot of hilarious lines from LP in the first verse. I'll teabag a piranha tank, heart barely beaten, a wild one who will swim directly after he's eaten. Like he's saying like he's a wild one because he's swimming after he ate. Like it's such a dumb, silly thing to throw into a line after saying I'll teabag a piranha tank. And I'm not sure if it's this song, but he says, "You can all run naked backwards through a field of dicks." A really good line. LP is just fucking hilarious if you look at his lyrics. But the where it gets kind of serious is in Killer Mike's verse 2, where he's like, "I'm a mixture of MJG and the Weatherman, a revolutionary banging on my adversaries, and I love Dr. King, but violence might be necessary. Because when you live on MLK, it gets very scary. You might have to pull your AK, send one to the cemetery." So he's like literally talking, like, I mean, this is like kind of, and when he's talking about violence, I know that, we're in the Run the Jewels album where it's hyper violence, but like he's also talking about activism and like actually, being on the streets and putting your bodies on the line. And
Yeah, on that line, on the genius
yeah,
annotation of that,
yeah,
um, expands a bit, saying that
yeah.
plays on the paradox that many streets named after the most peaceful figures in history are riddled by crime. There's a Chris
Hmm.
Rock quote in this annotation. You know what's
Okay.
sad? Martin Luther King stood for non-violence, and I don't care where you are in America. If you're on Martin Luther King Boulevard, there's some violence going down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's something that like several hip hop people have like drawn on. You know what I mean? Like people people know like MLK. Is it's kind of an example of making concessions to better race relations without actually giving a shit about what happens when you give those concessions. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Yeah. So that's like the story of a lot of MLK avenues, and yeah, he's just calling it like it is. And I like this last line though. You know, Now don't be silly. Who the fuck gonna bully me if I got a Billy? If I got a Billy and the bitch recording me, I'm like, who cares? What I wouldn't be is on TV, stuttering, talking, scared. So the question is, when Don's at home with the traitor ass bitch alone, who's that voice on the side of the phone that shakes and rattles his bones? Could it be the man behind the man behind the man behind the throne? So he's just kind of also calling out the just 24-hour news cycle stuff, and uh, 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 kind of the just corporatization of news in America, especially. We don't have a lot of regulations when it comes to news anymore due to some Reagan stuff, which Killer Mike will tell you about in his song Reagan. But yeah, we're in a really weird state when it comes to news and information here, and yeah, he's just started to talk about this. This is 2016 ish. Wait, what year does it come out again?
2014.
2014. So Trump wasn't quite on the run up yet, but there was people on the horizon. But yeah, they're talking about really important stuff, and it's kind of comes right before a lot of kind of revolutionary and protest stuff happening here. You know what I mean? So that's part of the reason too. It's kind of maintained importance for me is because every album he keeps on expounding upon the between this album and like the third album, he kind of touches on some things that have happened between those times. So it's very present if you are following those movements. Um, yeah, love Killer Mike's verses. Um, yeah, so this is Lie, Cheat, Steal, really really good track. Um, oh, you want a funny story for one of these tracks?
Yeah, yeah.
So Love Again. So this is one I'm going to skip right ahead to Love Again. This is the real raunchy one. This is yeah, if you ever heard the album, you know which one I'm talking about. This is the one where they're talking about how they're getting fellatio all day. Um, and it ends with a role reversal of that, which is fun. Yeah, just read the lyrics if you're curious about what I'm talking about. Yeah, so this song is just a fun, raunchy kind of like Two Live Crew esque like song that is not very serious and really fun. But anyway, I would listen to Run the Jewels back at the warehouse I worked at. I was in charge of the stereo, and we, the rules were pretty lax on what could be played. I played a lot of Run the Jewels and hip hop because that's what motivated me. And normally it was fine, but I heard this song come on while there was some suits in the back. There was like some important like business people walking around in the back, and I just ran as fast as I could across that warehouse to press the stop button on the song before it got to like the really raunchy part. Before it's like Dixon Mouth all day, I just, I did make it. And then I threw on, I think I threw on like Simon and Garfunkel. So I was like, rich white people like Simon and Garfunkel. Let's throw that on. Yeah, it was one of those moments though. That could have been a real job ender if that played.
I just got this image of now of you running in slow motion, chariots of fire.
That's what it felt like.
Dun, dun, like jumping to hit the skip button.
Right she before it gets to the chorus.
She wanted please, Mrs. Robinson.
What was he saying? I heard something weird, but I like this.
You want to what in a minute? What? I want to brief. Actually,
did you see the music video is great for this too. By the way,
I've not seen the music.
It's really HD bees and flowers. Like it's silly. It's very silly and very very funny. I recommend all the music videos that they put out. They have funny music videos if you're into.
I'm gonna assume there isn't a radio edit because the radio edit is what 3 words.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
Before we move on to this, I was going to briefly mention this as well because this has guest appearance from Gangsta Boo, who sadly passed away at the start of this year.
What?
Yeah, she died January the 1st.
No. Oh man, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's fucking sad.
Yeah, cause of death isn't publicly known. There's like rumors that he potentially allegedly
Sorry,
was.
I'm processing this.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah. The thing is, but then again, I was at these moments to pay tribute. I didn't actually listen to much of Gangsta Boo's solo stuff, but the only real place that I knew her from is from a guest appearance from Crazy Bones Thug Mentality in 1999. So it's all connected. So there was a reason I brought that up.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like that's the thing. Like she's guested on some great stuff, and she was from like 3 6 Mafia, right?
Yeah.
Just a legend in the hip hop community. And what I love about this song and her appearance in it is so remember that earlier version I told you about that we got of Run the Jewels 2? It like leaked early, and this song was different. It didn't include her verse.
Oh, okay.
So it didn't originally have her verse. I think what maybe happened is like they kind of, before the album was released, they kind of had a second opinion, like a second thought, like, this is a bit misogynistic, like as it is, But then I love that they incorporate her verse into it for the actual album and like have like a rebuttal basically from a woman. Which I think is one of the things I enjoy about them as well is they're very progressive when it comes to how they, you can arguably progressive about how they talk about women. Like they usually talk about how they want smart women around them. That's usually the aspect of women that like LP likes to bring up. But in general though, they're not. Hip hop can be, misogynistic sometimes from some artists, and I'm glad that they mostly are leaving that behind them in their old school hip hop. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
again, yeah, mention that Crazy Band album. I do like it, but there are some very choice lyrics which yeah, teenage me perhaps shouldn't have listened to, and listening back going, oh yeah,
Yeah.
teenage Matt, you
Yeah.
those aren't good lyrics. But
Yeah. Yeah.
what I quite liked about this as well is that he's kind of gender flipping the typical alpha male mentality that you can sometimes get with rap, and again the kind of like the overly sexual nature that you sometimes get with some of the songs, and just
Yeah.
flipping it, and it's like,
Well, like if a woman is sexualized in their songs, they're also like given an amount of they're given the flip side as well. You know what I mean? Like I think that what was it? One of the lines LP has is like, I like women with opinions and fat asses. You know what I mean? So like he's like, he's the fat asses part is, the objectification, but then he's got the opinions part. So he's like, he's, obviously like having fun with that juxtaposition of his lyrics. You know what I mean? But yeah, I like how just progressive and forward thinking they are, being as old as they are. I mean, not age shaming at all, but like, they're older guys, and like by all means, it doesn't make much sense that they are as successful as they are with this group.
And I really quite like the kind of I say not the imagery, but the kind of intent behind her last line, which is "Let's have an orgy. I'm gonna share your ass with all my friends." Where it just basically, which is the I don't want to get too graphic, but basically it's just one man with a bunch of female friends, which is kind of like the inverse of quite a few different rap songs throughout the whole of history. Yeah, and it's the
That's
kind
true.
of flip
That's
side
true.
of that.
Yeah. And in the music video, her verse, instead of being like flowers and bees and a butterfly, there's Venus flytraps. And like it gets like sinister in the last verse for the visuals. It's great. But yeah, that role reversal, it's just a really like, a great fun song in the middle of some like really heavy stuff throughout the album. Like that's another thing that I appreciate about them in general, is they're really good at making you laugh one sentence and like really think about the stuff the next sentence. You know what I mean? Or the next song, they're really able to get a wealth of emotions in their song.
I think before we move on, we've got time for one more song, I think, before we have to move on. So is there a song you wanted to...
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say, there's one more heavy one I wanted to get to, which was Crown. And this is just... this is one where it's a story from Killer Mike and then a story from LP. It's two different separate stories and very different experiences, which kind of highlights their different backgrounds in life, being a black man from Atlanta and a white man from Brooklyn. And kind of the gist of the Killer Mike verse is that he's talking about who he used to put cocaine in people's hands, like he used to sell cocaine, and he is talking about this lady heard she was pregnant. I'm guilty, I reckon, because I heard that shit could hurt babies' brains. Heard he was normal till 3, and then he stopped talking. Since then, ain't nothing been the same. Seen her some years later out in Decatur, told her I'm sorry for causing her pain, and then she turns it around on him in the middle of the verse. Causing me pain. She asked again, and she grabbed my right hand. Asked, am I crazy? Said, look here, baby, I release you from all of your sense and your shame, because I've been redeemed. I found in Christ. Whatever it takes, I hope you find it, Mike. And then the last part there is the look on her face and the glory replace all the shame and the hate that she wears a crown. And yeah, it's a really, really powerful just verse about redemption. Because yeah, I mean, he, like being from like a tough, neck of the woods, you sometimes have to do questionable things, and he's kind of showing the flip side of that, like, after getting through that, like, there is some redemption possible. Yeah, really powerful stuff on that. And then the second verse, I think LP gets like a lot more. LP's verse is a lot more like dialed into the white male experience, I think, in the U.S. as far as like being a coming from like a country or suburb background, with this. I'm just going to read the first verse or the verse here. Down with the shame, down with the shame. Carried the flag in some other men's name, loaded my weapon and swore to them vengeance, and stepped with aggression right into the fray, into the haze, into the murk, to prove to them what I was worth. Will teach you to move without mercy and give you the tools to go after the causes of hurt. You'll become death. You will take breath. This is for everything you've ever loved. Use all the pain that you felt in your life as currency and go out and trade it for blood. In this line, you are not you are now us. We are the only ones you can trust. So he's as someone that I have a brother that served a few times in Iraq and Afghanistan. And this is, I think, where LP's getting at with this, because like we have a very military centric culture in some ways, and that idea that joining the military and being something quote unquote bigger than yourself has a lot of pull here because of some of that patriotism. And as with my brother, he was recruited out of high school, and he was recruited before he kind of had any time to become an independent thinker, an independent person. And it's very damaging for people that don't know who they are before they get into it. And that's, I think, what he's kind of touching on, like losing your individuality, stepping into the fray, taking all of that pain and vengeance inside of you and directing it somewhere, and taking advantage of, maybe a young person's, inexperience with the world. I think it's a really poignant way to say it. Like he's saying it in the perspective of like a recruiter, maybe, it's just really laser focused on the blatant militarism of people, younger people in the U.S., and an obsession with that in an unhealthy way. I said I was going to get a little political on this episode. It's a little unavoidable with Run the Jewels. It's both of their verses are just equally just impactful, but for such different
I think again
reasons,
that's the culture clash between that and England. I mean from this side of the Atlantic, there's the stereotypical kind of like patriotism, overly patriotic, kind of like American, like bald eagle, military gung ho kind of stuff, which is what I think LP's kind of fight, like trying to face against, like you kind of you're male, straight, white, you're perfect to be sending over to train up to like serve America and all that kind of stuff, and don't think for yourself. Don't think for yourself. You got to think the American way, and
yeah. And especially like, after 9/11, there was a lot of people that might not have been that interested in serving, that were kind of, radicalized by that, and that fear and that anxiety and stuff that we dealt with after it. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I'm sure, in England you dealt with that as well, in those times. But that just kind of exploiting that fear, was something that, we got to see firsthand during the Iraq War and all that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the patriotism isn't as strong over here. Well, there are fringes of it, but I think that it's a lot more linked with the more extreme right and the more almost post, like they make like the kind of like overly patriotic make the conservative wing of the UK look normal in comparison. So like, and I think the national identity, I think Britain has got a very strong, a lot more cynical view of things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've seen the kind of flip side where the perhaps, I don't know whether the stereotypical view, apart from the bad teeth and tea and crumpets and stuff, is being a lot more being a lot more cynical about things.
Well, I mean, I think
and
when we hear that you have several wings of functioning parties that aren't just like the two guys, we don't even know what to do with that in America. We were like, what? It's not just winner takes all. I don't understand this. You know,
yeah, like the third party is the Scottish National Party.
And that's something that, like, just that is such a big, you know, people don't maybe understand a lot that how big of a difference that is.
What can throw people as well is that the Scottish National Party, people say, oh, is that like the British National Party? But the British National Party are extreme right wing, as in they are kind of like towards Nazism. Whereas the SNP, which is the Scottish National Party, are actually quite centre left and are quite liberal thinking. So there are a lot more of the left wing, which clashes with they ideologically clash with the leading party, whereas the second party, Labour, are kind of supposed to be centre left, but they're not. And okay, I'm not going to get
we do have some similarities then. I'm understanding some of that. Because we are we're in a weird spot here in the U.S. As far like there's a lot of the patriotism has taken a real insane turn in my lifetime. Pretty much since 9/11, it's been just kind of skyrocketing since then. So it's definitely something that is a problem here, if I can say so myself.
But then again, though, I think even though you got to the most extreme patriotism on the far right and stuff, there still is a unique divide, because there's like a big cultural divide politically, where people are either like Democrat, Republican and stuff, and I think Britain never really had that, apart from perhaps being the classics.
Yeah,
we
American thing.
Then we had David Cameron put a referendum of whether we need to leave the European Union, and then suddenly Brexit has pretty much created that us and them mentality and stuff. And
I bet it's been a definite difference since then, right? Which I can't even comprehend.
Man, I'm not qualified enough to go into too much detail. But
that's a whole college course. That's a whole college course at this point.
Oh boy, the cult. Yeah, it's. I think and again, calling it and again going from what we was talking about in terms of seeing what music can have and opening eyes of what we can see and stuff, and quite a lot of the American experience of people not wanting to go to war or like the stuff came from music. So I mean, it wasn't the Eminem album we talked about, but it wasn't the Eminem show, but the in Encore, Eminem did the song Mosh, which is like kind of about the kind of protest song against kind of Bush and that kind of idea of patriotism.
Yeah, and there was one, I think, on the album we did too. There was one where he was kind of making light. Well, not making light of. He was discussing the soldier
Square Dance.
Square Dance, that's the one. That was fun.
Because you're just a baby getting recruited at 18. They're going to take you before they take me. And
Yeah. I mean, he was even closer to the 9/11 stuff,
Yeah, but then that's using music to shine a light on the aspect and stuff. And I think aside from Eminem, I don't really know of any real other MCs that have been in a position to be able to say that. So this is kind of. It's a very kind of almost rare point of view.
Yeah.
And
it's such good, like there's such good commentary in Run the Jewels. Like that's one of their, things that they make one of the focuses of what they do.
And I think the difference between the Square Dance and this song, aside from about 15 years, LP is using almost poetry is like
Yeah.
poetry, minimalist poetry in terms of to describe a more serious way of doing it. Whereas the Eminem song is okay, it's very lyrically dense and very complex rhyming, but has a very almost tongue in its cheek, like
Yeah.
irreverence to it. Whereas this has the hindsight of the impact of what's happened since then and the growing place. I mean, if this verse was written now rather than 2014, considering what's happened post Trump, it'd probably even be even darker.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. That's the thing. Like, Summer on the Jewels almost plays like what's it called? Premonitions. You know, like they're predicting. Well, like you know, again, America's in a dark place right now, and I think that Killer Mike and LP know it. And you know, it's they're definitely seeing that like if things don't get turned around, you know, in certain ways, we are headed towards a really dark place, and we're gonna start seeing some of the things that they are even more, you know, the more darker things that they're touching on. You know what I mean? Like in a later album, like LP says. One thing about a cell is that they're not made for just one person. You know, once they're done with me, then they're going to come for you. You know what I mean? He's talking about how, like, you know, the prison industrial complex, especially, you know, and how, yeah, they're, I don't know, they get into a lot of really, really big stuff in the future albums as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and on that light note.
Yeah.
On that light note,
yeah.
the reception of the album. So, I mean, when the album came out, it did critically very well. It did very well.
All right, tight.
I mean, commercially, it got to number 50 on the Billboard 200. First week sales of 12,000 copies in the United States, which, in comparison to some of the albums I've spoken about in the podcast itself, perhaps isn't as big. But then again, it's a different landscape from what we've been usually talking about. But
yeah, and there was that leak, that leak of the album.
Yeah,
which I think they did. I think that whenever they leak it, I think whenever Run the Jewels is leaked, it's been them actually leaking it. So, but so it did okay. Sounds like
critical rankings. It's got 5 out of 5 on AllMusic, minus A and AV Club, 4 out of 5 in the Guardian, the Irish Times, 4 out of 5, Los Angeles Times, 3.5 out of 4, 9 in the NME, 4 in Q, 4 out of 5 on Rolling Stone, 5 out of 5 on Slant. It's in the end of year rankings. Complex best 50 2014 first. Pitchfork first. Rolling Stone 40 best rap albums of 2014 first. Spin 40 best hip hop albums of 2014 first. Stereogum best 40 best albums of 2014 1. But then again, Complex and Pitchfork were best albums overall.
Yeah.
AV Club, number 2 in best albums. Billboard, number 2 in best rap albums. Consequence, top 50 albums of 2014, number 2. Vibe, nice. 46 albums from 2014 that are actually worth your money, number 2. And I quite like the fact they just said, yes, sorry, we're not going to round it up, we just go to 46.
Yeah. We have 46. That's how many we got.
Yeah. The Wire. Top 50 releases of the year was number 8. Rolling Stone in the 200 greatest hip hop albums of all time put it as 148, and Pitchfork in the 200 best albums of the 2010s put it as 131. So it's done really,
a lot
really
of lists.
Well.
Yeah,
and the best to last, of course, the Pitchfork review. So yeah, I quite like seeing what score Pitchfork gave it. So
yeah,
out of 10, what do you think? What would you guess they gave it?
Well, Anthony Fantano gave it a strong 8.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say 8.5.
Gave it.
They do 0.5s? The 9.
Oh,
okay.
They pretty much rate it out of 100. So you got 7.2s and 6.5s, and they gave it a 9.0.
Yeah. I was going to say Fantano is usually like undershoots a lot of the time. So that sounds about right.
Anthony Giultano or something like that.
Oh man.
Yeah. But yeah, I gave it a 9, which is quite nice. I mean, it's
Yeah,
kind of weird. Kind of weird. I've been getting quite a few high scoring on Pitchfork lately, which is kind of weird. Um,
yeah.
usually they're
Been
like,
covering some great albums.
yeah, yeah. Usually they're just like shitting on decent albums. So um,
Yeah. It's people like to, that's what they like to do, right? But yeah, when you get an undeniable album, like it's, I'm sure it makes your job maybe easy. I don't know.
mhm. So yeah, so
Yeah,
it did quite well. I mean, perhaps could have done better commercially, but still
yeah.
critically great. Have you ever seen Run the Jewels live?
Yes, I saw them when they came to Madison. They were amazing. Gangsta Boo opened for them and performed "Love Again" with them live, so that was really really cool. Um, it was one of my favorite live performances. Oh, the guy that they tour with that runs the like tables and things. He's actually from this area, so like so in a way they have like New York, Atlanta, and the Midwest in their kind of repertoire. So yeah, that's another reason that they're also so mixed. But yeah, such a good freaking show. And then I saw Killer Mike talk at the local college, Madison, UW Madison, and I brought my little brother to it. And I actually ended up meeting Killer Mike at a restaurant afterwards. Got a picture with him, and yeah, I just kind of told him like how cool that was and how important and everything. I geeked out, and then like he was I tried to shake his hand, and he was about to eat, and he just gave me the fist bump. So I like did I had the awkward fist bump thing with Killer Mike. So I'll always have that to remember. But I have I have the picture of me, and I am just fully like I'm just like cannot contain my excitement. But yeah, he was really nice. I left him alone immediately because he was sitting down to eat. I was like, listen, I'm really sorry, but like, I can't pass up this picture. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're Killer Mike. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
want to eventually, like one day, one of my like big epic bucket list goals is to be interviewing on something big enough to talk to either of them. You know what I mean? Those are definitely There's a few artists where it's like if I ever have any sweat, I'm getting them in my studio.
From on your wish list and stuff, but
Yeah.
I was going to say what are you usually as well is that I usually ask guests to send me a picture of themselves for the episode artwork.
Yeah, I'll
So,
send you the
yeah.
I'll send you the Killer Mike picture.
Yeah, but yeah, I had that on the episode artwork, so that's that sorted.
yeah. Adds a little legitimacy maybe to the
Yeah.
thumbnail.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
so I know you briefly talked about them. So people have listened to this album, and then perhaps
Yeah.
say, "Oh, where do I go to next for Run the Jewels? Where would you recommend they go?"
So I think that for the next Run the Jewels album, I think so I have a thing running in my head where I'm not sure if 4 or 2 is the best of Run the Jewels so far. 4 is produced by Rick Rubin. So it's Rick Rubin, LP, and Killer Mike. So
Ooh, okay.
the production it could not be crisper, But yeah, I think Run the Jewels 4 is probably like if you want that, start to finish like really driving thing, I think Run the Jewels 4 captures that. Run the Jewels 3 is really good, but they go for a longer album and you know, I always find myself being like, I want them to do another Run the Jewels 2 type thing where it's just, So Run the Jewels 4 is a great place to go if you really, really enjoyed this one. Or Killer Mike's album Rap Music, R-A-P Music. That's got his song Reagan on it, and that's, I think, got his first song with LP. So, yeah.
Okay. Just have to check them out. So now we're here at the most important question, which is song for the Spotify Hall of Fame playlist. Now, for anyone who's not listened to us before, what this is, I'm going to ask Brad to pick one song from this album to be immortalised forever on the Spotify Hall of Fame playlist. I can't veto it, whatever Brad Sagas goes. So, Brad, what song are you going to pick to put onto this playlist?
I think it's going to be Lie, Cheat, Steal. Yeah. Lie, Cheat, Steal. That one's got it's got the message, it's got the fun, it's got the killer production.
It's got an Eddie Guerrero reference.
It's got references galore. It's got pretty much, I think everything I love about Run the Jewels is in this track, like all together. So definitely Lie, Cheat, Steal.
Mm-hmm.
And such a weird intro, such a strange intro for that track, and it just blows up. Yeah.
So Lie, Cheat, Steal becomes the next track to go onto the Spotify Hall of Fame playlist.
How many do you have on the playlist so far?
So this is episode 113, and
okay.
I think 111, 110, I think. So
okay. Yeah.
The exact number is 105 even. Okay, yeah, because I'm recording these quite in advance, and at time recording has only been 108 episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you have these a lot in advance. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And currently in the period of the year that I need to get a few in advance. So So
nice.
110 at the moment. So
yeah, not bad. We tried to keep up with the playlists on the Album Concept Hour, but I haven't touched it in a while.
Even though I've just had a look, and one of the songs is grayed out.
That'll happen. Yeah.
The teeth. You're my lover now. No.
Oh no.
I'm sure that wasn't grey when I looked last time.
That's someone's favorite song on the playlist.
Yeah. It's Aviv's. Yeah, that's Aviv's. So we are at the end of our chat, Brad. And if people want to find you and your podcast, where can they find you?
The Album Concept Hour is the name of the podcast. We talk about concept albums every other week now. We're doing every other week rather than every week because that's just so many podcasts. And you can find us at any of the podcast platforms, even ones that I didn't put it on. You can find it there. I don't know how these things get out. Otherwise, if you want to just go to the source where you can find any kind of way that you want to listen to it, anchor.fm/album concept hour is like our main, podcast page. So
yeah.
But we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. Flyover State Park is the overarching company name thing. So if it's not the Album Concept Hour, check out some Flyover State Park stuff. Especially our YouTube, we got video stuff for music stuff. Yeah, great pitch. I've given a few listens, and I've even been on it. So definitely check out the podcast and stuff. And I want to briefly mention as well is that on the wider kind of like podcast family, you appeared on Hits Don't Lie to talk about Utasa as well. I love those guys.
Yeah,
that's a fun. Have you been on?
Yeah. I think Jacob and Erin are probably the only time I've had two guests on at once. Was to get both of them at the same time.
They're great.
To talk about Shakira.
I can't wait to be on theirs again. I'm like saving up like all of my pop stuff so I can come to them with like a list.
Yeah.
But
love those
cool.
guys,
Yeah.
They're
fun.
I definitely love that. So Brad, that is it. I want to say thank you ever so much for coming on and getting me to listen to Run the Jewels.
Yeah, and I hope that you find your own journey with Run the Jewels. Yeah.
You've been listening to Pick a Disc, and I've been your host, Matthew Latham. Our theme music is Pump by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Pick a Disc is hosted by the We Made This podcast network, and you can find them on www.spreaker.com/user/WeMadeThis. You can find the Pick a Disc show site on www.spreaker.com/show/pickadisc. You can find us on all the usual social media type places like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter under Pick a Disc. You can also email us on pickadisc@gmail.com. Until next time, happy listening to all those discs that you are picking. Goodbye.
100 years since Nosferatu first terrified audiences on the big screen.
30 years since Francis Ford Coppola gave us Bram Stoker's Dracula.
And 10 years since Dark Shadows with Johnny Depp.
Vampire Videos is a podcast taking a look at this iconic blood-sucking monster on film and television.
I'm Dan Owen.
And I'm Hugh McStay.
And we're here to guide you through a century of vampirism on film. From Hollywood's golden age with Bela Lugosi as Count Dracula,
to the more lurid hammer horrors of the 60s and 70s starring Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee.
Through to the 80s boom in vampires, which brought these creatures of the night into the modern age.
And everything this century's had to offer us, from foreign and independent films, spoof comedies, and even teenage love stories. Yes, I'm talking about Twilight.
We aim to cover it all, one bite at a time.
So join us on a voyage into the depths of vampire cinema, old and new, with weekly guests offering their own insights and expertise. And why not follow us on Twitter @VampVideos?
A proud part of the We Made This podcast network, subscribe now to Vampire Videos, and thanks for listening.